expanded everybody's mind. That's kind of why I'm really glad to have you on.
Oh, good.
Let me just
It's
change your
my
name. By the way, everybody, this is coming out of the closet show. We're coming clean. We're going to actually tell you our real names today. We're not going to be incognito because we're doing a little bit different show. We're going to be doing a near-death experience show. Still the Pork and Beans show, but my name is actually Brian Bland. So there you go, the great reveal. And this is actually a gentleman, Mr. Beans is actually called Michael Harrell. So there you
Michael
go.
Harrell, aka Mr. Beansprout. The reason why I call myself Beansprout is because we're live, and Beansprouts are live instead of just Mr. Beans.
And I'm just going to rename John J. Davis our guest today because
He's not an iPhone.
no, he's not iPhone. Our guest today is John J. Davis, and I heard him on a podcast, the Next Soul podcast. Is that what it's called?
Next level.
yeah, next
Next
level
Level.
soul. Yeah.
Next Level Soul, right?
And that's
I was
actually a really top quality,
yeah, it is. And I was
it makes
and,
us
yeah,
want to apologize for having you.
yeah, we want to apologize for having you on our show after that one. No, I'm just joking.
No, this is great. I love
All
sharing
your
my
great
story.
work.
So anybody who wants to listen to me, I love to share it. So that's what I'm
And it
doing.
looks and it looks like you got a sense of humor, which we like to do. And also I think you can appreciate us because we're gonna have a discussion too at some point, right? Just a discussion, about what you've experienced and our thoughts and maybe some similarities or cross comparisons between the experiences that Mike is experiencing and I'm experiencing, because really it's all connected stuff, right? It
Yeah,
really is.
absolutely. Yeah.
It's all
My
stuff.
story, I always tell people my story is just a piece of the puzzle, just a piece of the big jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah, and it's hard. I mean, I wasn't even going to mention it, but it might be a leap of faith for you, but I mean, our show is a lot about Sasquatch, or mostly about Sasquatch, and they are actually guides and teachers, just like the ones that that you met on the other side, or just like the ones that people talk about. They're being guided by whoever, outside of the South guides and whatever. And it's amazing the similarities. And I've composited a list of I think 40, and without even really stretching my imagination too much, similarities between a near-death experience and the things that I've experienced from a relationship with the Sasquatch people. So that's how I know it's all connected. It's incredible, and it's fascinating. So
Yeah. It's definitely fascinating. That's for sure.
And it all feeds into what I was talking about before, about there is this kind of awakening of humanity, and these kind of experiences are loosely termed spiritually transformative experiences, of which, like I said, near-death experience is at the top, because you don't come back from a near-death experience just like a regular Joe anymore. You got this other thing, going on,
Yeah.
you're expanded and grounded and all that.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, is that you feel compelled, because I know you love telling your story, not because you love hearing your own voice, because you feel the importance of it and the message and what it means for people hearing it, and if they can connect with it, because of how beautiful it is, and the hope and everything that it speaks of. And it's the same reason why I do it, and Mike does it. It's the same thing. So we're all being guided to speak out at this really pivotal time, and as I see it, in human history. So let's not waste any time, and let's and like I said, we'll interject and we'll discuss throughout your story. But why don't we get right into it and tell us how it happened for you?
Yeah, absolutely, Brian. I just want to say, thank you for inviting me on your show. I always love to share my story, because I think it does just what you said. I think it does give people a lot of hope, and I am privileged that people ask me to share my story, and I love to do it. So let me just give you a little bit of a backstory. My my near-death experience was a little bit different. I didn't see, well, you know how a lot of people will say that there's some kind of an accident or they're in the hospital and they die and they find themselves floating above their body. Then they see a tunnel, and at the end of the tunnel, there's a white light. And as the person starts going down the tunnel, they're met by someone like a family member, a loved one, a friend who tells them it's not their time and they have to go back. Well, that's traditionally what we've heard about as a near death experience. Well, mine was different. Mine, somehow, they bypassed all of that. And my story starts on the other side of that white light that's at the end of the tunnel. And I'll explain that in just a minute. So here's how it started. My dad was in sales and he won a sales contest. And part of what he won was 2 mopeds, or what we would call scooters. And we used to ride them all the time in the neighborhood. Well, I was out one day riding around, excuse me, and I had an accident and I slammed into a tree. And the way I landed, I tore the tendons off my right hand and needed to go into surgery and have them repaired. Well, at the time when this happened, I was 21 and I had never had surgery before, had really ever spent very little time inside of a hospital. So I didn't know what to expect. So the day the surgery arrives and I go in, and as they start to give me the anesthesia, I had an allergic reaction and it stopped my heart. And I was actually dead for 7 minutes. During this 7-minute period, I had what is now commonly known as a near-death experience. Back when it happened to me, there was no such thing as a near-death experience. I didn't even know what had happened until days later. So that's how my story starts. As soon as I died, I woke up and I was standing in the most incredibly beautiful building I have ever seen. It was made of white polished marble, and it was a long, long building. It was so long that I couldn't see the end of it. And right about that time, in my left ear, I heard, "My name is Alan. I'm your spirit guide." And I had never heard anything like that before in my life. I didn't know what a spirit guide even was. So my spirit guide's name was Alan, and he showed me all these different places that he took me to on the other side. He was like my guide. So the reason I'm able to explain everything that I saw, he was telling it to me in my left ear. So what the building that I was in, the very first time I opened my eyes and I was in this building, it was called the Orientation Center. And it's the first building people come to when they cross from the tunnel into the white light. They end up in the Orientation Center. And on the right-hand side of me were these gorgeous, beautiful white marble columns, maybe 20 or 30 feet high. And they went all the way down this corridor, maybe 6 feet apart. In the middle of this corridor were tables. And there were 4 benches on each one of these tables, these marble tables. And again, as far as you could see, and there were 2 people sitting at every table. On the left, and this is the part that was the most amazing, on the left-hand side of me in this building were these doorways or tunnels. And they looked like they had been perfectly cut out of white marble, just like a door with 90-degree angles, a doorway. But they were black inside. I couldn't see. They were it's like doorways made of blackness. Well, these doorways or tunnels, this is what connects us from Earth to the other side, which is our real home. Earth isn't our home. We just come here to learn and to experience, but the other side is our real home. So my guide said to me, "Look at the next tunnel." So I looked up and there was a man that was coming through this tunnel. And he was an elderly gentleman, probably in his 80s or 90s. And he had his right hand over his heart, like he was having pain. And my guide told me that he had a heart attack, and that's how he died on Earth. So he was in the tunnel, He came through the white light and ended up in the orientation center. Well, at every one of these different tables, there were people sitting there. And my guide told me that they were counselors. Their job on the other side is to be orientation counselors. And everybody on the other side has different things that they like to do, kind of like what we would call jobs. But they don't have to have a job like we do here, where you've got to pay rent, you've got to buy groceries and pay for insurance. They don't have any of that. They just do things that they love to do. So this woman stood up and she walked over to this man. She took his hands in hers, and she walked him back to the table, and they sat down. And I could see her talking to him, but I was too far away to actually hear what she was saying. But her job as an orientation counselor is to help people remember where they're from. Because when we come into a lifetime, we forget our true home. And I don't know how that happens. I just know that it's some kind of a God thing, that God set this up somehow, that we just don't remember our true home until we get back. So what these orientation counselors do is they tell people, hey, you just finished a lifetime on Earth. You're back home now. You're back to the real world. And that's what their job is, to orientate people back. And then my guide said, watch him carefully. So as I was watching him, Brian, he changed. He changed from an elderly gentleman into a man in his 30s. And my guide told me that on the other side, everybody is in their 30s. And I didn't understand why that is. And I still don't know why that is. There are so many questions I have. I have more questions now than I did when I had this experience years ago.
Yeah.
So we're all, for whatever reason, we're all in our 30s.
Can I ask you one thing while I have it on my mind?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because it correlates with something that Bean, well, we call him Mr. Beans in his other life, Michael and I have experienced is you saw these details, but you're kind of letting on or letting us know that like big details other than what you're saying. It's like it's a knowing. That I don't think he was whispering in your ear. You had just kind of a knowing, because you were talking about things separate to what you were seeing and experiencing.
Yes.
And so you were going through that knowing thing too at this stage?
Well, when it first started, I didn't know that I died. When I was standing in this building, my very first thought was, oh my gosh, I had no idea the hospital was this big. It was enormous, this building. So I didn't really know what was going on, as I didn't know what had happened to me until about a day and a half later, after I got back in the ER. I just went along with everything that was happening. Everything was happening so quickly that I didn't really have much of a chance to say, okay, let's stop. What's happening? I thought I was supposed to be having surgery. Where am I? What are all these buildings and these places and what's going on? That didn't occur to me until almost the very end of my NDE. Yeah.
Yeah, but after the reflection, though, you came away with a lot of like the meaning. A meaning of this is this and this and whatever. I mean, I don't think that it was all that was whispered in your ear. There was some general knowing given to you while you were in that experience of the NDE, right?
Yes, absolutely. It was almost as if my guide could hear my thoughts as we were going along, because he would describe to me what I'm seeing. And what he did is he took me to the outside of every one of these buildings first, so I could see what they looked like. And then he took me inside. So the building that the orientation center that I was in, my very first place, there's a building in Turkey, in the country of Turkey, and it's called the Temple of Artemis, Artemis, Artemis. And it looks just like the building that I was in, but much, much larger. Huge rectangular, beautiful marble building with columns all along the outside. That's what it looked like.
So I think you were saying, okay, and sorry for taking you off track, but I thought, I just found it interesting because you obviously had a knowing when you were in that state too, that that you either had later on, because sometimes it can come later,
Yeah.
or, but separate to, just what you were being told and saw. So I think you left off that everyone is at 30 years old, and you want to
Yeah.
continue?
Yeah. So my guide told me to watch this gentleman, and right in front of my eyes, he changed from an elderly gentleman into a man in his 30s. So this woman had done her job. She basically helped him become back to the person he was before he left to come into an earth life. Now he's back. She's orientated him. He remembers now where he's from. And he again appeared as his normal self in his 30s, and he stood up and he walked off to the right between these columns. And he walked down 3 steps into what I call the gardens. And if you've ever seen what an English garden looks like, that's what these gardens look like. Beautiful plants and flowers and trees and the most perfect green grass you've ever seen. It was all manicured. And what happens is when they walk down these steps into the gardens, that's where people have the reunion. When people cross over, they pass into the light, they have their orientation, and then they go to the right outside the building to the gardens, where everybody who they have ever known in their lifetime who crossed before them is there to greet them. Family, friends, maybe it's your parents, maybe you have kids over there, and everybody that you've known from the other side is there to greet you. And the reason that this happens, it probably happens in any life, but it happens mostly when you have a lifetime on Earth. And the reason is Earth is a very, very tough place to come to. There are many people who won't come to this planet because it is so hard. But when you get back, it's like you've just accomplished such a tremendous task that everyone is there to greet you. So that was one of the neatest things I saw about the first stages of when we get back home again. We have this reunion, and everybody, your parents are there, your friends, family, everybody is there again. And something else that I thought was remarkable, our animals also survive our passing. So they survive just like we do. And all your animals are there too.
I actually had an experience when one of my animals passed. I visited him at the Rainbow Bridge, and it was it was a real experience. So yeah, I mean, I so connect with that. And so you were experiencing all this from do you see people greeting each other and animals, or did you specifically have people greeting you as well? Or
no, I was just watching him. I was watching him be congratulated and being greeted by everyone that he knew before. There must have been hundreds of people there, hundreds. Some people probably have more, but all of us go through that. All of us get to have a reunion when we get back.
And all the people, and I assume that all the people that greeted him and even the animals were in optimal health too. Is that?
Yes. Correct.
Well, that's amazing.
Yeah, they were all in their 30s, and our animals are well. They don't have cancer anymore. They're fine. They're young and they're happy, just like we remember them.
Yeah.
Well, I've listened to a lot of NDEs, and you're the first person who's ever talked about people coming from other planets, lifetimes on other planets or other locations. And that's kind of now that makes a lot of sense, but
I'll get into it even more when I get farther along, because I learned that in my NDE, that there are not just millions but billions and billions of planets that we can have lifetimes on. Earth is not the only one.
Yeah.
Well, that's big news right there.
I think I know what I'm sorry for interrupting, Beans. Continue your thought, but I just wanted to say, I was wondering, what I really wanted to say with my last thought is, do you think that they gave you downloads of information? I know they gave you clear knowledge, of everything. That was the gift. They gave you complete remembering of everything that happened, which is remarkable. But do you think they downloaded information into you too? And that's you know, as far as because you seem to have a bigger knowing from
Yeah,
something
they
from
well, I don't know if it was so much of a download. It was more of he was just talking to me. He was just telling me everything I was seeing in my right and my left ear. Everything I saw, what it was for. He told me that every building that he took me to had a specific purpose for it. All these buildings had reasons why they were there. And he only took me to a very small part of the other side. The other side it's like a planet. It's enormous. But I only saw one small specific area that was there. It's the other side has oceans and mountains and I mean beautiful. It's almost like Earth, but without all the pollution. There's no war, there's no disease, there's no hunger, there's no poverty. It's like a perfect place. Only here on Earth do you come to and where things are where we still have war. You still have homelessness here. You still have illness. You still have aging.
yeah. Were you
So
in a state? Did they have you in a state where did you feel? Some people described. Now it seems like to me like you were taken there more as an observer.
yes,
To bring back this message or whatever. But
that's exactly. Yep. Yeah. What they showed me wasn't for me. They showed me what they showed me so that I could tell others. That's been my entire purpose, my whole life, is to not keep it inside, but to share it. Because my story it's so hopeful and it's such a positive message that they shared with me. And that's exactly what it was, Brian. I was not shown this for myself, but for everybody else.
but apart from that, were you in a state where, I mean, because a lot of people say that when they're on the other side, it feels more real than
Oh yes,
than our life here. So
that
did you
is
experience that?
100% accurate. It felt to me like that was the real world. That's the real home. That's where we're from. Earth isn't our home. It's not where we're from. We just come here to experience and to learn and to grow. And it's not that you can't learn and grow on the other side. You can. But it's like trying to describe to somebody what it's like to ride a bike for the first time. That feeling that you're on the bike when you're riding and you're balanced and you feel like you're flying. That's really hard to describe to somebody what it's like to ride a bike until they can do it themselves. And that's one of the reasons we come here. We come here to learn, and we also come here to try to help others as much as we can. The Dalai Lama said something, and I never forgot, that reminds me of why we're here. And he said, our prime purpose in this life is to help others. And if you can't help them, at least don't hurt them. And that's one of the reasons why we're here, not only for ourselves to learn, but to also help as many people as we can. So I'll keep going, Brian.
Yeah.
After the orientation, my guide took me to a beautiful building. This one was kind of rectangular and square, and it had columns, white marble columns all along the sides. He took me to the inside, and inside I was in a round room, and it was like being inside of a theater, but it was circular, and it had movie screens up on the top, all along in a circle. So anywhere you looked, you could see a movie screen. And all of a sudden, it started playing episodes of my lifetime up to that age where I was at 21. It showed me as a little infant. One of the screens showed me as an adolescent. One of the screens showed me as an elementary school student. Every one of these screens had a different episode of my life that was playing. And I could look around the whole theater and I could see each of these different screens playing an episode of my life. And the reason we do this, and I'm sure that you guys have heard this before, but we have a life review. Life reviews are really real. We really do have them. And everybody has to go through a life review. And the reason is you want to see, how did you accomplish the goals you set for yourself? Did you actually accomplish what you came here to accomplish? And so they show you all the different parts of your lifetime. I thought that
So
was absolutely, yeah.
in this particular one, they showed you,
Yep.
right? So
Yep.
were there emotions attached to it while you were
Oh,
watching it? Like,
oh yes, very much so.
yeah.
Absolutely. I could see my life. I could see my mom when she was younger, my dad, times when I was playing soccer. I mean, just incredible emotions about, oh my gosh, I remember those times. And it was so incredible to see them again. But it's all recorded. And that's something that I never knew how to explain, and I still can't. It's strictly a God thing. I don't
How about
understand. Yeah.
how about emotions attached to guilt, or like people that you think you hurt or did wrong or stuff like
Yeah.
that? Did you get all that too?
I didn't really have much time to do that. I think that's true because I've heard that before. You're not the first person that's ever said that. I've heard that before. I only saw areas of my life that I had had up to that point because I was only 21 when I had my experience, so I didn't have a whole lot
Ah,
of life. Yeah,
yes.
I didn't have a whole lot of life experience yet, but he
And
wanted
it
me to show
sounds
them.
like you had a fairly normal childhood too, so there may not have been a lot of trauma or drama or things that would pop out at you.
Well, I had that's a really good. That's an interesting point because I had severe learning disabilities growing up, and I did have a lot of trauma from that. It was horrible, and I mean, I just saw your hand, so you must have had that too.
Yeah, heavy duty dyslexia.
Yeah, yeah,
That's what I had.
yeah, I totally understand that, absolutely. But my guide showed me that so I could tell people that you really do have a life review, and it's no judgment. Nobody's judging anybody. It's just to see if you accomplished what you set out to accomplish. Here's something else that is going to blow your minds. The next place he took me to, again, was another building. It looked very Greek Romanesque with beautiful marble columns. But this building, when he took me to the inside, it was a little bit different. This one was like being inside of a regular movie theater, kind of like what we have today. But instead of having the screens up in a circle on the top, there was one screen at the end, at the front of the building. And a movie started playing. And my guide said, I'm going to show you 3 lifetimes. And my guide showed me 3 past lifetimes. And the reason is he wanted me to tell people that past lifetimes really are real, that we live for eternity. We never die. That's how God created us. And you can have as many lifetimes as you want. And I was raised a Catholic. And I think the reason he showed me this part specifically was so that I could tell people that past lifetimes really are real. And you're not taught that in Catholicism. I don't know if you guys were raised in a particular religion, but my parents took me to church. My sister and I, we used to go to church 3 times a week. So everything that I was experiencing in my NDE was all new, especially the part about the past lifetimes. And here's
Yeah.
what he showed me. The first one he showed me was I was a monk. I had a shaved head. I was wearing a red gown, and I was in a monastery. And my job was to teach little kids about being a monk. And that life took place somewhere in Asia. The next life he showed me was of a shoe peddler. I had a wheelbarrow and I had shoes piled up in this wheelbarrow. And my job in that lifetime was to fix people's shoes. And where I was pushing this wheelbarrow on a cobblestone street. And this lifetime took place somewhere in Eastern Europe. The last lifetime he showed me was a fisherman. I was standing in a wooden boat and I had nets, and I would toss the nets overboard to pull up fish. And my job in that lifetime was to be a fisherman to help feed the village. And so it was just amazing to see that not only do you have a lifetime on earth, and you learn from that, but you can have as many lifetimes as you want. And there are many people who won't come to Earth because it is so hard here. Many people don't want to do it. They don't want to experience it. So they go elsewhere. So not only can you have a lifetime, but you can have as many as you want. And that was one of the parts that absolutely fascinated me, because I think we all know that we are so much more than we are just from one lifetime. So that was the part. Yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to ask you once again the same question. Did you have any recall or emotion attached to any of these lifetimes? I mean, was there
No.
anything you felt completely detached from them, like it was a
Yeah.
stranger?
Well, I don't know how to explain this, but I knew it was me. I didn't look like I do now, because we all have different DNA when we go
But how did
through.
you know it was you? I'm sorry, because he
That's-
told you, or you just had a feeling?
I knew it was me.
You just had that knowing.
Yep. I knew that those lifetimes that he was showing me, those were me. That's what it looked like in that lifetime. Yeah.
Okay.
So the next place, this next one is what I think is going to be the most interesting to both of you, is he took me to a building that looked like a stadium, like a football stadium. Like here in Denver, we have the Broncos Stadium. And as big as that stadium is, this one he took me to was even bigger. And all the buildings that he took me to, I can't even describe to you how large they were. They were just enormous, enormous buildings. So this looked like a stadium. So he took me to the inside, and inside there were thousands and thousands of seats, and it was empty. The lights were on, it was very bright. And where I was inside of a planetarium. Have you ever been to a planetarium as a kid?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's exactly what this was like. So my guide was there, and there was a gentleman behind me. And I don't know why I didn't turn around. I didn't turn around to look at him because I just was looking at the enormity of this stadium building. And he said to me, "Let's begin." And all of a sudden, all the lights went off. It was pitch black, and I sat down in one of the chairs. And on the ceiling, where they have, where they show you the planetarium on the ceiling, that's where I was.
Mhm.
And he said to me, "When you look at the stars, this is what you see." And what he was saying was that people on Earth at that time, at our level of knowledge, this is what we know about the stars. And he started showing me our solar system. Earth showed up, and then Neptune, and then Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Mars, our sun. When he said to me, "When you look at the stars, this is what you see." And then it went away. It all went blank. And then he said, "When we look at the stars, this is what we see." And he was referring to people on the other side with their level of knowledge and development. And he started showing me, Brian, planet after planet. First, there were dozens, then hundreds, then thousands, and then millions and millions of planets started showing up on the ceiling until there were billions of them. All of them were different colors. Some were red, some blue, some had oceans, some were just desert. And there were two reasons why they wanted to show me this. The first one was to show me that Earth is not the only inhabited planet in the universe. Because he said to me at the end, he said, "There is far more life in the universe than you can possibly know." In addition to that, he also wanted me to know that you can have lifetimes on many, many other planets. Earth is not the only one. And that, I think, that part of my near-death experience was probably one of the most fascinating experiences for me when I had my NDE, because I love astronomy. When I was in college, I took an astronomy class, but I had to drop it because I could not understand the math. The math is really complicated in terms of trying to calculate distances even from Earth to the moon or Earth to the sun. But I want to share something with you and for your future audiences as they listen to this.
Yep.
I read an article recently from an astronomer, and she was trying to explain to her readers how large the universe really is. And she gave an example of our galaxy. We are in the Milky Way. And she said that in the Milky Way, just our galaxy, they think there are over 100 billion planets, not millions, but over 100 billion just in the Milky Way. And she said that if we had a spaceship that could travel at the fastest rate that we know of, which is the speed of light, it would take 99,000 years to get from one end of our galaxy to the other end of the Milky Way. And I cannot even wrap my head around how large that is. And that's just our galaxy. There are billions of galaxies. So try to imagine how large that really is and how vast it is and how extraordinary, what kind of lifetimes we can have on other worlds. And I just can't wait to get back. It's kind of like, I don't really have a death wish, but I cannot wait to get back to see all the things that we can do over there. So that was one of the most exciting, I think, eye-opening parts of my near-death experience, was knowing about the other planets.
Well, that goes back to what I was talking about before we started, and that is that this whole ET UFO phenomena thing is kind of like a big pillar here in awakening of consciousness, because when people interact with the ET people, they say, "Where are you from and who are you?" And the ET people almost always say, "We are you. We are your brothers and sisters."
Yeah.
So there's like, out of these billions and billions of planets that we've had lifetimes on, they know what's going on Earth here, and they come and visit their relatives on Earth. You know what I'm saying? It's very
Yeah.
interesting. There's a very interesting thing going on here with this UFO alien sort of topic.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's something that I found really interesting. The other day, I was listening to a podcast, and this lady had said that astronomers in the year 2023, the current year, they have found 5,340 planets outside of our solar system. I had never heard that before. That was like, that's the ones that they can actually have already found. Over 5,000 planets now. And just imagine how many billions of planets there are in our galaxy. So that was the part that was the experience that I thought you both would appreciate the most. And it was one of my favorite ones.
There's more rooms coming up, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm only about halfway done.
Yeah.
Well, let me go back
cool.
to the life review, because that's something that I think is critically important. Because I know a lot about healing. When you're talking about each one of these movie screens or TV screens that you're looking around, and there was like when you're born, and then when you're a toddler, and then when you go into school, and then you're adolescence, teenager. Well, each one of those is in effect an entire lifetime. So there's actually you as a child, and there's you as an adolescent, as you as a toddler, and you know what I'm saying? And they're all happening concurrently right now in our life. And when we have trauma and drama in the past, there is a you that's there that us in the present can go back and rescue and talk to and help with, right? So there's that thing, which once that's finished, once that's all caught up, so that the littlest parts of you and all the other parts of you can come back into one coherent thing, that's when you get to this other thing that you were talking about, that where you have these 3 different past lifetimes. And then in that, you didn't see any childhood or trauma and drama. You just kind of showed you that that's what was going on, and you were a cobbler or a monk. Yeah.
Yes.
So I think that's real important, because this applies to us now.
Yeah.
Oh yes, very much so. That's a wonderful analogy. Yes.
Did you feel like many people have described, because there is a practical part to this too, from my experience, with the things I've been taught or whatever with my guides and teachings and stuff, is that did you feel that there was no time when you were there?
Yes.
Because time is linear time is just a point of reference for people, to place points of reference
Mhm.
and whatever. Like it's our invention. Time is not linear for on the other side and whatever.
You know
And
what? You are absolutely right, because here's something I can tell you when I was over there. When somebody dies here on Earth and they go back to the other side, it feels like they just left, because a lifetime on the other side feels like a couple of weeks or a month. But when we're here, when we're in our lifetime, we could live to be 80 or 90 years old or even older, and it feels like we've been here for a long time. But on the other side, they don't grieve the way that we do. Let's say, when your parents cross over, we feel like we're going to miss them for years. They don't have the same kind of grief that we have, because from their standpoint, we're going to be back there in about a month. So they don't grieve like we do. Isn't that amazing?
well, it is, but it also it checks all the boxes with what I've experienced too, and Mike
Yeah,
too. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's so it's all connected. All of this stuff. You know, uh,
absolutely.
One
and
of
you
the
find
biggest,
that
sorry, Mr. Port. One of the biggest things that I get from people who have a near-death experience is once they get on the other side, there's a few things that they just don't have anymore. They may have a lot of questions and stuff, but they have no fear and no
Yep.
pain. It doesn't matter how much trauma or pain they may have had, or physical illness, or any of that kind of stuff. As soon as they get to the other side, all the pain is gone. And it is not just gone, it is as if it never happened. So you're going around with this guy, and whatever pain he might have had, it was just, it never reached you. It was not there. It did not exist. And that's, talking, going back to the hope, that is like this hope, our trick is to try to learn how to end the pain that we have in this lifetime, yeah, as soon as we possibly can. That's kind of one of the
Yes,
goals in life, is to get over our fear, to get over our pain, and resolve all those issues. Yeah.
that's true. Yeah. On the
there's a
other
couple.
side, any kind of pain that you had in life, it's gone. It just
Gone.
becomes it's a memory. And everything that you've learned in your lifetime just becomes part of the totality of you when you get back. But all the pain, the trauma, the heartache, all of that just becomes a memory, and it fades and becomes just another one of your past lifetimes. But it helps you become the person that you are. And one of the things I always was curious about is, why would we come here to experience things that are painful? And the reason is, and you probably both already know this, is we learn the best when something doesn't go right. When you
Yeah.
have some kind of a problem, or you have to work through something, you go through a divorce, or you have a death in the family, when you get to the other end of that grief, you are so much more than you were before you went through it.
Mhm.
That's the reason that we come here.
Yep. Any great I'm a little bit of a songwriter and stuff or whatever, and dabble in singing and stuff, but and I'm not saying, when I say any great artist, I'm not saying me, but I'm saying, but any great artist, a lot of their greatest works are written when they're in the most pain and
Yep.
grief and whatever. Like, when Frank Sinatra, for instance, when he having his problems with Ava Gardner, I don't know if you know about that. That's when his
Yeah.
voice got really so rich, and you could just like feel the pain and the emotion and everything, because he was singing under real emotion, so
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep.
great
I
for
Well,
I absolutely believe that.
this thing about pain, okay, and you talk about hope. The whole understanding of all emotional healing and psychology and all kind of stuff like that, it needs to be pinned on the fact that the pain is well, while we're in pain, whether it's grief or sorrow or fear or terror or anxiety, panic, whatever those things are, uh while we're in them, they are the most real things that there are. But
Yes.
that doesn't, but there is an end to them. And when the end comes, then it's all is like complete illusion. And that's how healing works. Is you have to go through that to get to the point where it's gone. When it's gone for good. And it's like it never happened. And
Exactly.
to me, there's the hope there, because so many people are traumatized, and they commit suicide because they feel like their pain is never going to end. The pain is the most real thing to them, and all this kind of stuff.
Yep.
And for people who are doing past life, people who binge watching past life reviews, they need to know that pain has an end, and once it ends, it's in forever. That's it. Finito, bonito. It's all gone.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's true.
And so
Very
that's
true.
this whole suicide thing, and people having to take drugs and being addicted and all this kind of stuff is all driven by pain.
Absolutely. Yep.
Well, I have some questions that are some of the questions that I wanted to ask that, but I don't know what's the best time to interject them, but maybe I'll ask one now. But like you said, you're only about halfway through, but
Yeah.
you did not get the impression when you were there, or you were not told, or however you experienced it, that you did not get the impression that there was judgment when you were there in
Correct.
the religious sense, right?
Yeah.
Like,
There's nothing like what we're taught in Christianity or Catholicism. No sense of punishment, no sense of judgment whatsoever. When you have your life review, you have it just with you and your guide. Your guide is the one that absolutely helps you plan your lifetime. And I'll get into that in a little while, but there is no sense of judgment. Nobody looks at you and says, you really screwed up when you were 25 years old, and this is what happened, and this is what your punishment's going to be. Nothing like that at all. The whole purpose of the life review is simply to learn from it and to grow from it. And it becomes part of your experience, just like all the rest of your lifetimes. But nobody sits you down and says, all right, Brian, you screwed this up when you were 25, and you're going to have to go back to Earth and do it over again. Nothing like that happens. Every lifetime that we have is something that we choose. Nobody forces us to do anything like that. And there's especially no sense of any kind of judgment at all.
well, I believe, don't get me wrong, I don't want to ruffle any feathers. I do believe in Jesus Christ as a great prophet and master, but
Yep.
but I believe, but I do believe that the old hell thing and stuff is like so many other things that are being utilized against us today is based in fear and control. So
Yeah.
I don't believe in that. But
I don't either. Yeah, I don't either.
yeah. And
Penny,
so
Penny Rummel has a question. She says, while you're on the other side there, did you ever see any orbs? She's like a big orb lady. She takes pictures of orbs. Did you see any
No,
orbs?
no,
Orbs,
I didn't see.
orbs as spirits, or spirits as orbs, or orbs as spirits?
No, everybody that I saw, they look just like we do. They look just like us. There are people some people are taller, some people are shorter, and there's every kind of ethnicity. Every race is there. Everybody's there. The bodies, because I get asked a lot, do we have form over there? And we absolutely do. And I don't know how to explain it, but it's more real and more concrete than what we experience here on Earth. And we think everything here is real, and it is. You can knock on a table and you can feel it, but you can do the same thing on the other side. It's the energy is different, but you look however you want to look, and everybody has form. When I was I'll tell you this part. The next part will kind of explain this a little bit better. But the next building he took me to was a beautiful, huge, round building. And it had marble columns, but the columns were all in a circle around this building. And there was a big dome roof. And this building, and I don't know why, but that's where we go when we plan our lifetimes. And when I was in that building, there was a window off to the left, this huge window, and there was a lake outside, and it had weeping willow trees all around the perimeter of it, and the weeping willow leaves were sitting in the water, and the water was so clear I could see the bottom of the lake. And in front of the lake there was a walkway, and this is where I saw people for the first time. Everybody was walking past, and there was a huge amount of activity. The other side is really busy, just like it is here. It was like being inside of a city and watching them walk by. And people were wearing different kinds of gowns. On the other side, people seem to wear tunics or robes a lot, kind of like what we think of as ancient Greece. And my guide said that's because they're the most comfortable. But people can wear jeans and t-shirts just like we do here. But this building, reason he took me here was he wanted me to be able to tell people that our lifetimes really are planned out. We don't just come here with no reason. We come here for specific purposes and reasons. And my guide took me to an area on the other side in this round building where there were again marble tables. And on the marble tables were scrolls. And they looked like what you would think of as an Egyptian papyrus scroll. And it was rolled up on the table. Well, I walked over and I picked up this scroll, and I took off, there was a blue ribbon around it, and I took the blue ribbon off and I unfolded the scroll on the table so I could look at it. And it was black writing. And have you ever seen writing that's like calligraphy? That's what it looked like. It looked like calligraphy writing. And what my guide wanted me to tell people was that on these scrolls, we actually write down the things that we want to learn in this lifetime. And it was kind of like what we do at the beginning of every year. A lot of people will have New Year's resolutions and they write out their goals and what they want to accomplish. And we do the same thing for a lifetime. Well, when I tried to actually read what was on the scroll, it folded back up again because I wasn't able to read what I had written for my lifetime. He just wanted me to see that our lifetimes really are planned. And here's another thing that I thought was so fascinating. He took me to an area of this building where we can read our soulmate's book. Have you ever heard the term soulmate?
Absolutely. Or twin flame, yeah.
Yeah, it's actually real.
Yeah.
He took me to the only way I can describe it, it was like a huge library, and all the books looked like maroon Encyclopedia Britannicas, millions of them in this library, and all of our books are there. And my guide took me to the area where my guide's, or not my guide, but my soulmate's book was. And all of them have gold writing. Instead of going across horizontal, the writing goes vertical. And my soulmate's name is Nina. Nina is how it was on the binding of this book. And all of us have soulmates. What I don't know, though, is how often your soulmate comes into a lifetime with you. I don't think it's very often, because it would be a perfect relationship.
Yeah. What is the purpose? What is the purpose of this, of the soulmate then? And what is the relationship? What is it actually? Is it you? Is it the male female part of you, or how does that work?
No, the soulmate is an actual creation that God created with us. All of us have
like Adam and Eve kind of thing?
Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah, that's a good analogy. And it's a person that we have with us on the other side for eternity. It's your perfect soulmate, your perfect mate. And I just don't know if the soulmate comes into a lifetime at the same time you do. And the reason is because we come here to learn. And one of the best ways we learn is by having different relationships with people. If you had your soulmate here, you would never have any challenges to work through because you would have the perfect mate. So you have that perfect mate when you're on the other side. I just don't know if you have that mate with you when you come into very many lifetimes. That's a question I would love to ask, but I didn't
I
at
think,
the
I
time.
think they do it sometimes. Let me just ask you something while because something that, once again, all the connections and the little light bulbs going off and
Yeah.
whatever, you talk to people who are into our kind of journey and you say, wow, that kind of happened to me kind of thing or whatever too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I was going to say, actually continue on. I kind of lost
Okay.
my
Sure.
thought for a second. I'll
No
remember in
problem.
a second.
No problem. Here's the next building he took me to. This one was the largest of everything he showed me. This building looked like the Supreme Court building that we have here in the United States. It was amazingly long, and there were columns, marble columns, only on the front, not on the sides, just in the front. And there were about 50 or 60 stairs you had to climb to get to the top of this building. Then he took me to the inside, and the inside was an enormous, monumental library. Everything that you could ever want to learn about anything was in this library. Whether you wanted to learn about the history of music or the history of Europe or science or anything you wanted to learn about was in this library. And there were big, tall bookshelves with books just as far down as you could see. And there were tables, and the place was so much activity. There were people studying, people were sitting at tables reading, people were talking, just like you have in a library that we have here. Well, my guide took me to an area on the left-hand side of this library. And on the left-hand side were these, all I can think of is they're like study rooms, kind of like we have here in libraries. We have study rooms. In every one of these rooms had, it looked at the time like what we would describe today as a flat screen TV, maybe a 50 or a 60-inch flat screen TV mounted on the wall. And he took me to this one area, this one room, and there was a woman in there, and she had her back to me. She was sitting on a couch, and she had jet black hair down to her waist. And she was watching one of these video screens. And my guide said she is watching history. So I got closer, and I could see what she was watching. She was watching a battle that took place between the Native American Plains tribes, the Indians, versus the United States cavalry. It was a battle. And I said to myself, how is it possible that she could be watching history if there were no video cameras back then? How could that be recorded? Well, somehow my guide was able to respond to my thoughts. And he said to me, everything gets recorded. He didn't explain to me how that happens. I don't know. I don't understand. I can't even fathom how it's possible, but it's a God thing. It has to be a God thing that everything gets recorded. So you can go to this library, not only read, but you can actually go to these different rooms and you can watch different episodes of history.
Wow.
Anything you want to learn about, you can go learn.
Sounded
So
like
yeah,
you might have
that
been
means
looking
that
at-
Pork and Beans going to have their own room, and we got 100,
yeah.
500.
We'll have our
videos.
own. We'll have our own hall. Yeah.
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 Little
Pork and Beans
Bighorn. It
show.
sounded like you might have been watching the Battle of Little Bighorn or something.
Something like that. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah, well, so-
that's profound, though. I had a feeling that was so, because it is the same thing we were talking about. Your childhood, your birth, and then your toddler, then your childhood, going to school, and a teenager, right? That's kind of recorded in a way in our memory, but it's also a reality because you can
Yeah.
go back there and interface with your past self. So
Yes.
that's an example of the recording.
So actually,
Yes.
actually all going on simultaneously too,
Yeah.
because of the linear time kind of thing and whatever, which is one of my lessons. So I remember what I wanted to tell you, and this is interesting, and this is fascinating, and it might, I'm sure you'll be interested to hear this too. So I'm kind of a weird kind of character. I go off on like, visions and stuff or whatever. Sometimes I've had a few in my lifetime, and one would interest you a lot is, one time I was just on my back porch and all of a sudden I'm transported to another place, like totally like I'm here and then I'm not, and it's not like in my mind's eye. It's like I'm actually right there, and I was having a pre-birth experience.
Oh,
Okay,
really?
and then, yeah,
Yeah.
and this and I had a knowing. This is something that I've come to know with my lessons or whatever. There's these knowings where you just know stuff, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I was trying to allude with you. I'm sure you have some kind of knowings with this stuff that wasn't actually just whispered in your ear or whatever. There's some kind of knowings
Yeah.
too. Anyway, I had a knowing it was me, and there I was at this kind of sterile white kind of table in this room with another person that I happened to know in this lifetime, and we were planning what we were going to do in this lifetime.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. And
That
so
is,
when you said guide, your guide helps you plan your next lifetime, that
yeah.
kind of made me think, I wonder if that was my guide
Oh,
that
I'm
was
sure
with
it
me,
was.
that was
Absolutely.
with
I'm
me,
sure. Yeah.
that was with me, and we were, and and it's a pretty important lifetime, as we all know,
I'm
what we're
gonna have to
going through.
talk to this
And
guy when
so,
I get
and
back.
so,
What was he talking, trying to coach me? He's supposed to be a guide and help me out.
You know
so,
what?
Have to
That's
but
talk
you know
to
what I
him
absolutely
mean?
about that.
something.
But,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Now you got me all off track, man.
That's all right.
Not
It's
you.
true.
You're having a
This
great
other
life,
guy,
so you care.
that's a specialty. I have something, but no, but that really struck me because I was thinking, well, I knew you'd like to hear that because it
Oh, yeah.
kind of fits right into what you were told. So I
Absolutely.
actually experienced that and can collaborate that with you. And now you kind of collaborated something with me that possibly the person I was with was my guide, who was
Absolutely.
somebody I actually know. So it's kind of like, oh,
Yeah, I absolutely believe that. 100%.
it's kind of like, interesting. So, oh, I wanted to also ask you, so, we all kind of know that this is a classroom or whatever, and that we're trying to, I guess, they say return to source. So when, this is a two-part kind of question. So when do we decide to return to source, or when are we ready to return to source? I guess when our lessons are done, I suppose would be an answer. But also the other question is they seem to have an idyllic life over there, and yet they seem to come over, they come over here for experiences and lessons. So what are they lacking on the other side as far as emotions, or what are they lacking that they have to come here for to
Hardship,
learn?
hardships, anything that causes, I don't want to say specifically pain, like physical pain, but the other side doesn't have anything to overcome. You're not in a situation where you have anything that is negative. There is no negativity. There's no war. There's no bad relationships. There's no layoffs. There's just nothing negative on the other side. It's an absolute, just like you said, it's an idyllic, perfect place. And on the other side, you do what you love to do. God created all of us with gifts. All of us have gifts. Some people like music, some people like writing, some people like architecture. And on the other side, a lot of your time is spent pursuing what you love. But you also do all kinds of things. You go swimming, you hike in the mountains, you go to music festivals. Everything you do here, you also do there. But there's nothing to overcome. There's no challenges like we have here. And that's why we come here and that's how you grow. You normally grow when things are not going well. You only grow when you have to work through something. And that's the
So,
primary reason. That's the reason why we come here.
So through these hardships that we experience here, we take to our growth on the other
Yes,
side.
exactly, exactly. And Brian, your question about going back to source, they didn't tell me that specifically, that kind of question, but you only do that if you want to, because God created all of us uniquely to live for eternity. And if you want to go back to source, I think you probably can, but then you would lose your individuality. On the other side, we are still us. And we still have all the memories that we have from every lifetime. And you take that with you after every life. So I think a person can go back to source or back to God if they want to, but they don't have to do something like that.
Yeah.
I think that I got this nagging feeling that we're already source and we're the the cells of the body, so to speak, of source. So there's not really there's not really any kind of actual demarcation line that says united and separated. I don't think that's the reality that we're separate from. I think there's a unity consciousness already there, and even that whole other side that you're talking about is like a construct, just like what we have as a construct, but it's a construct with no pain and no conflict.
Right. Yep. Yeah, there's no
We,
pain at all.
we have a few questions here, but I think you answered one. This is from Penny Rummel. John, did you ever look at your own body during your NDE and see yourself in the physical clothes you were wearing, etc.? You just woke up right on the other
Yep.
side of the light, right? You didn't see any of that.
No,
Yeah. Okay.
I never even, yeah, I never thought to look down and see myself, but other people could see me. They could see me.
Yeah. Diana Maynard asked a question, and I think that a lot of it is, if I may interject before I ask the question, is what I experience is that, we plan our lives. And so she's asking, do you know, or what determines how long our lives here on Earth are? And I think that the circumstances, the hardships, everything that we go through, we kind of plan the experiences that, we want to, like, I can almost imagine like it's a checklist, like, I want to experience
Yeah.
this kind of pain this time of this and this. No, I need a little of this kind of thing. And so I think that we determine that on the other side myself. But what do you think? Do we determine how long lives are?
Yeah. When I was looking at that scroll, when I was in that building where we plan our lifetimes, all of the major events of our life get planned. Like, what country are we going to live in? Who our parents are going to be? What language are we going to learn? What kind of a career are we going to have? And I think, even though I didn't see this part, I think it's true. I think to some degree, we also determine how long we're going to be here. Are we going to live a long life, like that gentleman that I saw when I was in the orientation center when he came through the tunnel? Or are we going to have a short life? Or maybe we're going to pass when we're, in our 40s. Who knows? But I do think that somehow we do plan how long we're going to stay here, because everybody has different reasons for coming in. And sometimes there's just one thing we come to learn. You might come to learn what it's like to feel unconditional love. And you might decide you want to be a parent and have kids. Or maybe you want to experience what it's like to have some kind of a job loss, or you have some kind of a career that you can't have on the other side, which you want to experience here. So there's all kinds of reasons, but I do think there's a portion of our planning that goes to when we're going to pass, how we're going to get out of this lifetime. Are we going to have a heart attack? Are we going to die from some illness like cancer? Or are we going to have some kind of a car accident? I do think to some degree that there has to be something that is planned for that, because everybody has different exit times. Some people leave when they're little kids, and some people leave when they're 100.
And yet at the same time, there's got to be free will woven in
Mhm.
there too, because without free will, we can't learn our lessons, right?
Yeah, if you're having
Exactly.
if you're having a lot of fun, you might get an extension of 5 or 10 years.
Yes,
Really?
absolutely.
I'm serious.
So,
Yeah.
so, yeah. So I'm wondering, so far where you've been, and we'll continue with the story, but so far where you've been, it seems like it's kind of like acclimatizing you to the other side, right?
Yeah.
Did
Yeah.
you get
And
any feeling of after that process of, walking you through all these movies of your life and life review and the meeting room and all these different acclimatization processes? Did you get an idea where you go after that? I mean, do the people just stay there, or are these people that you saw there in the process of this acclimation or whatever? Is there something, what's beyond that?
I don't know actually what's beyond that. I got the feeling in the sense that where I was, the other side, is the place that God created for us in the beginning. Kind of like what you would think of what the Bible, the book of Genesis says about the Garden of Eden, a perfect place. The other side is like that perfect place. That's where we spend eternity. But you can leave there and go have different lifetimes anywhere in the universe. But the other side, that's our true home. That's where we really spend eternity when we're not in a lifetime.
What my point was is, so it's not like this. So this isn't just a stepping stone to another phase of the other side. This is this is the other side, and where you go and where
That's home.
it's
That's
not just like in the climate. It's not like just like a reacclimatizing you to the other side. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, there might be other levels, but I don't know. But where I was, the feeling that I had when I was there was, this is home. This is where we spend eternity. This is what God created for us, like the Garden of Eden. It's our perfect home. And that we leave it only to come into different lifetimes and experience different things. But that the other side, there might be some other places to go to, but they didn't tell me that when I was there.
Did you get the feeling that people were living like their perfect lives there, like they were living lives much like we would here, except for obviously without the nonsense and stuff?
Yeah.
Did you?
You are on the other side, you are your perfect self with all of your different lifetime memories. When we're here on earth, it's almost like we're fragmented because we don't have all of our memories. And I think that was done on purpose, because if we were here in a lifetime, like let's say right now when we're talking, and we had access to all of our memories from the past lifetimes that we lived, I think that would cause schizophrenia. We wouldn't be able to handle it.
Yeah.
So when we're here, we're just only remembering our experiences up to this point. But on the other side, we have our whole totality of everything that we've learned. We become that again. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and what a beautiful thing to look forward to. Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
My question is, what about, this is a classic question. I'm sure everybody who thinks about heaven and earth wonders about it. It's like, what about all this evil stuff, the continual wars and crime, corruption, genocide, poverty, starvation, and all that kind of stuff? What is that all about? It seems like in terms of lessons, there could possibly be better ways to learn a lesson than people killing each other and killing babies and trafficking and all that, all the dark stuff. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. What I can tell you about that is evil is real. It does exist. And my guide did not tell me this specifically, but it's the impression that I got was that there are souls who, for whatever reason, have turned their backs on God and they follow a dark path. And God doesn't condemn anybody. He gives every one of his creations unlimited amounts of time to turn themselves around and see the light. But the other side does have what are called the lower levels. Just like the other side has levels of light, there are also levels of darkness. And the souls who perpetrate those kinds of heinous crimes and activities here on earth, they are done by undeveloped souls. People always ask, well, what about someone like Hitler? What about Hitler and all of his cronies who participated in the worst genocide in history? They are entities who haven't had a lot of lifetimes, and they are at low levels of development. And they haven't learned yet that every human being needs to be treated with respect and compassion and kindness, that we are all related. We're all brothers and sisters. And for whatever reason, I don't know why some souls haven't developed like others. And I think it has to do with not having very many lifetimes, because that's how we learn. But I do know that evil is real. All you have to do is look at the news. Every day you'll hear about, school shootings or some kind of horrific genocide happening somewhere in the world. And those are perpetrated by those lower level entities. That's how it was described to me.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair enough. That's a little bit better than,
How would you, I got the, well, I had some idea, I had I get downloads and stuff basically and stuff and whatever. And I seen the universe in different ways, but one of the ways that I've always described it is, and I've been taught, is that we are expressions of God expressing himself, which means that we're all kind of one kind of thing, when you were in that state. I was in a state called the love zap one time that was very similar to the feelings of a near-death experience, a feeling of connection, unconditional love, no judgment, all that stuff. So did you experience that on the other side, unconditional love and connection?
Oh yeah. There's on the other side, you can feel God. And it's the only thing that I can describe it. It is the most extraordinary feeling that I've ever experienced. You can feel how much God loves his creations, how much he cherishes everybody. It's this feeling that absolute unconditional love. Absolute, it's the sense of, if you've ever felt joy, it's like that feeling, but 1,000 times greater. And on earth, I don't know why we can't feel God, but the best way that I can describe it is like having an earth lifetime is kind of like being in a battle. You're in a war and you're in a foxhole and you don't have a radio. You're cut off. That's what it feels like to be here. But when we cross to the other side, you just feel this immense feeling of unconditional love that comes from God. And that's one of the things that when I had my near-death experience and they brought me back, I went through at least 2 months of suicidal depression because I could not fathom how I was going to stay here on earth and live the rest of my life without having that feeling again. And it was just horribly, horribly hard for me to adjust to living this lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that when we all cross back over again, we are going to feel that. We have that unconditional love. But let me mention a couple more things for you.
Well, you haven't gone all the way through your story, have you?
No, I still got a little bit more.
just go
Yeah.
for
Well,
it.
why don't we go through the story and try to.
Okay. All right.
I know we kind of get sidetracked, but it's kind of like for some good reasons, and
Yeah.
time. So
That's good. I like the questions. That's good for me. That's good.
yeah.
So the next place he took me to was a castle. And it was a castle just like you'd see in medieval Europe. And the reason he took me here is he wanted me to know that on the other side, learning has different ways. You have different ways to learn things. And it's not that we spend all of our time learning. Sometimes we just have fun and visit with each other and hang out. But if you want to learn, the other side has ways to learn. Not only can you go to a place in the library and watch it on the screen, but you can actually go to a physical place on the other side and see what these different buildings on Earth looked like. So for example, he took me to an area on the other side where there was a castle, this beautiful ornate castle built of stone, huge, just like you'd find in England. And he told me to walk inside. My guide said, let's walk inside. So we went inside the castle. And the first thing I noticed was this beautiful red ornate carpet all along the floor. You felt like you were walking into royalty. And on the left-hand side and the right-hand side of the castle were these huge walls. And on the walls were life-size paintings. And what the paintings were, they were kings and queens who lived at that time on Earth's history. So if you wanted to learn about King George, for example, you could go to one of these castles. You could walk in, you could see what he looked like, and you could see what the clothes looked like. And that's what these paintings were. All the way down, you could see these different paintings of people that lived in this castle. Well, the most amazing part was in front of every one of these paintings was a podium. And on the podium, there was a book. And the book was about that person's lifetime. So if you wanted to learn about that period of Earth's history, medieval Europe, you could go to this castle, see what it looked like. You could walk in, you could see what the person looked like, and then you could read about them in this book. And the reason he took me here was to show me that this is just another way of learning, that you can experience life in many different facets. So if you didn't have a lifetime during medieval Europe, you could still experience what it was like for those people by seeing these kinds of things on the other side. Well, right about then, to my right, there was a spiral staircase. And there was a woman who was walking down this spiral staircase. And she had strawberry blonde hair. And she was wearing kind of like a peach or an orange kind of a gown. And this is where she walked up to me. She could see me. And she walked up to me and she said, is there anything I can help you find? And you know what I said to her? I said, no, thanks. I'm just looking. And I could have asked her anything. Where am I? Who are you? What's a spirit guide? Well, I thought I was supposed to be having surgery. And I didn't think to ask any of those questions. And my guide said to me that what she likes to do on the other side is she loves history. So not only could you go to this castle and look at the different paintings and read this person's book, but you could also ask this girl questions about that particular time of Earth's history. And she knew all about it. So I thought that was just so fascinating that there are people that, just like you have professors or teachers here, you also have professors and teachers on the other side too.
Well, they say we have all knowing on the other side. I know when I had my experience, I didn't have the need to ask any question because it was kind of like it just is. It was just it was just a perfect serenity and connection, kind of thing. So
absolutely.
When you were reading, if you had to try to read the book or whatever, would it have been like in real time, or would you have just been able to like zip right through it? Like,
I don't know. I don't know. The book they were thick. I mean, it talked about details of that person's lifetime. But they were thick books. It would take a while to read through them all.
Wow, just think of all the mysteries I'm going to solve when I go to the other side. Jack the Ripper.
Yes, absolutely.
I'll go watch that movie, and well, maybe I won't want to watch that. Probably.
Or you could learn about the the Bermuda Triangle. That's a huge mystery. The
I
Loch
mean,
Ness monster.
so literally like this, I'm getting the impression like with this big room, anybody can just go in there and say, hey, let me watch a little bighorn today or the battle. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Or the sinking of the Titanic. Anything you wanted to watch, you could watch.
Wow. Yeah.
So here's the
Or any experience you want to have too, right?
yeah, yep, exactly. Hey, here's the last part of my near-death experience.
Okay.
My guide took me to a field, a beautiful wildflower field, meadows and green grasses. It was absolutely gorgeous. And then he disappeared. He left me, and I was there by myself. All of a sudden, a man showed up in front of me, and it was Jesus. And I knew it was Jesus. Just, I don't know how I knew that, but it just came to my mind that this is Jesus. He was wearing a white robe, and he had a golden sash around his waist, and he had gold colored sandals that laced up his calves. I could see his hands and his feet, but I could not see his face. There was so much light, so much energy that was emanating from his face that I couldn't make out his features. But he spoke to me, and he said, you must tell them there is no death. And just like that, the very second he said that, I was back in the operating room looking up at the surgeons.
Wow.
And that's how my experience ended. In all of my life since that time period, I've tried to do what the other side has asked me to do, to share my story. And most importantly, to tell people that there really is no death. There is no such thing as death.
Well, that knowing,
But
see
that's
that
the
knowing,
big pillar of understanding. That's what I was
That
saying, was
knowing.
these big pillars of understanding.
that
Yes.
knowing that was Jesus. That's one thing I'm talking about. You just knew, right?
I just knew. Yep.
Some things you were told, some things you just knew. That's
Exactly.
kind of like what happens. So yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
There's this, I've had this experience called fulfillment, being fulfilled. Did you have anything like that on the other side? Did you feel fulfilled?
Oh yes. It's an extraordinary feeling of you are absolutely happy beyond anything you've ever felt here on earth. You feel fulfilled, you feel whole, you feel like you're back home again. And this is your real state. Being here on earth, this is just temporary. We're just here for a short time to experience and to grow. But
Yeah,
it's not home.
anything that you want is fulfilled before you finish wanting it. It's given already. So it's interesting. But
It is.
there's an interesting little dynamics with is if you're in a state of unconditional love and fulfillment, and yet somehow over time you decide you want to go take an adventure and become a Swahili bushman or something.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, or to be an assassin of a king somewhere.
And
So
some of the lifetime.
one of the big lessons from my guys, this Sasquatch people, and I'm glad that you're open to stuff like that. I'm not trying to sell them on you or whatever, but they're just guys like anyone else. Is they're trying to reawaken us to who we really are, which is, we're part of the collective kind of thing. And and they're also trying to, and when we realize who we really are, then there's no fear, there's no division, and there's no judgment or whatever. And I know that, and because there's a higher vibration, and so that it's kind of like the problems of the world just go away when you're in that state because they cannot exist there. So did you come away with any of that kind of? See, this is the connections and all the 30 things in common or whatever. I bet you came away with a lot of that stuff too. No judgment, no division, all that.
Oh yeah, but he also said he had to work through a process of being suicidal, and it's like I can't deal with it.
Yeah.
Of
course.
So but it sounds like now you're pretty much comfortable with being able to speak your message, and
Yeah.
normal's not so bad.
But do you, but my point is, do you see the similarities between what I'm saying, what I'm being told, and what you felt maybe
Oh, yes.
after relating and healing a little bit and coming to
Yes,
grips with it? So,
absolutely. Absolutely. Hey guys, I got to run. I've got another meeting at 2.
absolutely. Well, that's great. So, thank you so much for coming. We got your whole story out and we discussed a couple things, and I think you opened my eyes a little bit, hopefully vice versa. Some of the synchronicities, of all the stories
Yeah.
that are shared on this show always amaze me. And the
Hey,
thing
Brian.
about
You tick that little box that says, this is what you came here for. It's like to tell people, click that box.
I
You
love
did
that.
good. You told us
I love that pre-life thing you
new
talked
stuff.
about. I
Yeah.
like that pre-life thing you talked about when you said you were with your guide. Now, and I bet you that sterile white room kind of rang a bell too, to you in some way when I said that's where I was planning it.
Yeah, because that was kind of like being in that building where there was all the scrolls, because I could see millions and millions of scrolls on the wall. That's where everybody plans their lifetime. So when they
Well, I
come
was there, man.
back, yeah, they're all there. They're all the scrolls are there. And when you come back, you can open up your scroll and kind of see, did you accomplish what you set out to accomplish? It's just fascinating.
So you're saying that the person that you're sitting with is more than likely your guide.
Yes, absolutely.
Amazing. Yeah, that's incredible. Well, that was the gem that I picked out of it, other than the fact that I got to meet you, and like we're pretty good buddies now.
Well, this was great. I so enjoyed being on your show, Brian, and thank you so much for inviting me. And I want to give you my email. So if any of your listeners in the future, if they ever have any questions, they're more than welcome to write me. That's completely fine.
Absolutely. And I'm also going
How
to,
cool
I'm
is that?
also,
An email to an emissary of God. That's pretty cool.
and also,
Never thought I'd get that one.
and also I make a YouTube edit. Okay. So send me I'll send me all of that stuff and I'll put it in the video as well, but give it out for people who are listening right now.
Yeah. It's John J. Davis 65 at iCloud.com.
Okay.
All right.
Anytime you want to write me any questions, I'm happy to talk about it anytime.
Do you have a website or anything?
No, I only have my email. I do have a Facebook account.
Okay.
It's John.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, it's John J. Davis in Colorado.
Okay. And I was going to say, if you ever want to get really weird and delve into the strange and beautiful mystical spiritual world of Sasquatch, you can always join our Pork and Bean show, and we can chat back and forth and be cool, because the synchronicity, the similarity is like, it's really just the same thing delivered in a different format. It's just like beautiful.
I think you're right. Absolutely. I'll have to take you up on your offer.
Yep. All right, my friend.
It's the same thing with the ETs. Did you know that the number one type of ET that is experienced on a craft is a light being, and that is either they're a ball of light or they're a being has robes on with light coming out of the front. That's the number one, and then after that, number two is the human type that you
Wow,
see.
that's
So it's
amazing.
interesting that the highest level of the ETs are pretty much light beings.
Yeah, that is. That's very interesting.
I think it's self-explanatory, but my closing question, if I may, and you're pretty young too. How have you changed? I mean, obviously, you kind of the whole story told us how you've changed, but I mean, your perspective on everything has changed since this experience. You probably have no fear and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, I have. It really it opened up my eyes, because we mentioned earlier how you're raised in a certain religion or a certain belief system. And when I had my experience, especially when I saw Jesus at the end, I didn't get any sense from him that there's any kind of judgment. And I didn't get the sense that there was only one religion. I got the feeling from him that whatever religion you believe, whatever brings you closer to God, is the right one for you. That not any religion has all the truth to it. They're all pieces of the puzzle. And I just got the sense that there's no judgment from him. And I have lived my life. The big difference has been not being so religionistic, but being more spiritual and
Mhm.
trying to live a life like Jesus did, of helping people and not judging, just trying to live a good life and learn and help others when you can.
Yep, and you're showing it through your story, and it's shining right out of you, radiating right out of you, man.
Really glad you showed up for us. Took a risk.
I'm glad. I'm delighted I was able to talk to you.
Yeah, and you know, and reach out to us and stay close, because we got lots of stories we could share, and have you on again, and you know, and whatever. So
Sure,
Where,
that would
where,
be great.
where do you live now?
I'm in Colorado Springs.
Okay. A lot of
Yeah.
Sasquatch out there, but watch out when you go walking around in the woods.
Yeah,
They're out there.
I'll tell them I met you guys.
They know who
well,
you
yeah,
are.
actually, you know what? That's not funny. That's actually what you should do, and just say,
Yeah.
"Hey, I met these guys. They know you, and I'd like to know you." And then away you go.
There you
Then you
go.
really get to do another adventure.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. All right, guys.
Okay,
Thank
my
you so
friend.
much. All right, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks, John. Thank you very much. Well, that was cool. A little different, but I liked it.
We're still alive. How about that? Yeah,
Yeah.
it was good. It was good. I'm really glad he was worth the wait. He got problems with some kind of something and canceled a couple of times, but then he came on and he delivered the goods. It was a good
Well,
choice.
he wasn't making excuses. They were legitimate, because he reached out to me. I didn't reach out to him the third time. He reached out to me and said, "Okay, I can do it now." So I'll give him all the credit. But yeah, well, it was
That,
good. I hope people
I
enjoyed it.
listened to a lot of near death experiences. His was one of the better ones.
Oh, absolutely.
He was
Absolutely.
actually groomed for he had a near death experience and it was for telling the people, other people
Oh,
have,
that's profound.
you
Yeah,
know,
profound. And I
he
mean,
was
you
like
know,
a tour, he was like a tour guide of what happens the first day on the other side.
yeah, man, I want to go back and watch I want to go back and watch all those historical things. What would you want to watch? What would you go watch first?
My mind just went to the billions of other planets. And then just to think how many planets you could, if let's say we're eternal beings, there is no death, and we could go to all these different planets and, ride horses that look like ducks or something, and,
No, I know,
yeah,
but I mean, just on.
that'd be all kind of fun, a planet you could fly,
No, I'd definitely like to do that, but you know, I kind of would like to see the battle of Little Bighorn, because I kind of had that thing with Crazy Horse there for a while, where I was connecting with him and stuff.
yeah. Well,
And I'd like to see how the battle went.
he might be up there, being the spokesperson for that history page, right? He should actually,
I wouldn't mind seeing how the battle went down, you know, because he was a pretty incredible guy.
yeah, sure. You might have been there in another lifetime. You might have been a foot soldier or something.
Crazy pony or something.
Well, no telling if you were on their side or the other side.
My heart feels like I was on their side.
Oh, sweet. Yeah. Why not?
That's how I feel like I was. I don't feel like I would be on the side of force and might, and you know, holier than now kind of stuff. I don't know.
So there's so many good things to think about. There was number one, there is no death. That's got to put that in there. And
Yeah.
then there's the end of pain, and there is a maximum experience of fulfillment. Yeah. And these
What
are
were
all
some of
things we can strive for while we're alive now.
what were some of the things he told? I mean, there were a bunch of points he told me that clicked with me. You know, like that pre-birth thing or whatever, you know, that really clicked with me. What were some of the things that clicked with you, that struck you and was true to your experience?
I liked when they took him, there was a big stadium and it was a planetarium, and so from that planetarium you could visit or see all these planets. I didn't ask him if the planets were in other parts of the galaxy, I kind of assume they were, but for all I know, there could be a billion planets on an invisible realm right here in our solar system. We don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know
Yeah.
I don't know how that works. But just the idea
Yeah.
that the Earth is not the pillar, or is not the example for the whole universe. It's just one of many.
Yeah, it's hard to wrap your mind around, but I mean, I guess in reality, everything is going on right in the now moment, all our past lives and everything. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting, but that was one of the first big lessons the Sasquatch people started teaching me right in the first year or so, was about time. And the non-linear reality of it, and incredible. And this
And then
so much.
they talk about no space, and which is not the same as the Godhead where you go when you die. It's not quite the same, I don't think, because in even where he was, there was like this progression from one building to another building to another building, one experience to another experience. But with the Sasquatch, they're in no space, which means there's no time, and then they can just pick where they want to go. So
Yeah,
I don't have a problem with them with two different realities or two different realms being acceptable. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Because the
yeah,
Sasquatch actually say they live in no space, so that it must be compatible with some kind of like a really nice environment for them to live in, and to be connected to all things.
yeah,
But we live in sort of a disconnected, me and you, us and them kind of a reality,
yeah,
which is not the same as the Sasquatch live in a unity reality where there's just oneness.
yeah. I was talking to this guy, he might come to the camp out, and he says he learned like about 100 and maybe I'm misquoting, but 100 and 150 Sasquatch words, and he doesn't communicate. When I was initially talking to him, I thought he was, when he says he talks to them, I thought he was doing mind speak, telepathy and that, but apparently he doesn't do that at all. He actually studied their language from different films and stuff, and like the Sierra sounds and different things, and and found out what they're saying, and he apparently says that he can talk to them, and that on 4 occasions they answered him back. And one of the things that he says that they talk about is when they say who they are, or maybe not who they are, but in some regard, is that they talk about that monkey king that you talk about. That's one of the things that
Oh, like
he's picked up in the speech.
Hanuman,
Yeah,
Monkey King? Yeah. Well, I
that's
think
one of the,
he was like one of the big players. It's sort of like he's sort of like Abraham Lincoln, or one of those kind of guys. It's like a big deal,
no, but
big historic figure.
they talk about that or whatever, apparently in their language, according to this guy. And I mean, I'm not going to say, well, take him for his word, right? But it sounds pretty interesting.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I haven't heard too many people who are actually talking to them directly in their language and getting a response.
I don't know anything about it. I don't put anything past him, but I don't know anything about it.
Yeah. So anyway, looking forward to the camp out, because a lot of really, well, everybody who's coming is supposed to be there, but a lot of
Looks
really,
like it'll be like 20 people there this time.
oh yeah, there's going to be like Arla there, and Tom Cantrell's coming, and that's a powerhouse duo right there. That guarantees you that the Sasquatch are going to be
Penny Rubble is Coastal
Betty
Chicken.
Rubble, Betty Rubble,
Rubble.
Penny Rummel, and um,
Coastal Chick.
my friend Laurel, Coastal Chick.
Yeah, I
The
talked to Mark.
McSkimmings are coming. The McSkimmings are coming.
Oh, wow, that's a big deal.
Mississippi.
I talked to Mark Roberts the other day, and he said the Sasquatch took him into a portal.
Oh,
So
that's
that's
cool.
that,
Kathleen Whitehead is coming.
yeah,
I mean, if that woman can make it, I mean, anybody can make it.
was almost anybody.
You know what I had? Okay, you got what I was getting at there, Mr.
So
Pork.
so tell everybody about to go join your channel and subscribe to your pork and beans.
Yeah, and also let us, I'm gonna take my background off so I can do this. So also let us know what you thought of this new show, if you guys want any more of the near-death experiences kind of thing. Alrighty. So anyway, if anybody hasn't had their heaping helping of tasty pork and beans, you can always like and subscribe to our channel on Facebook, The Pork and Bean Show. And also my YouTube channel, where we have every episode of The Pork and Bean Show edited. And a bunch of other material of my teachings from the
You got 500 videos of you walking around the woods. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Something like that, plus about 7, yeah, close to 650 some odd videos. And that's Sasquatch BC, the true story, the Pork and Bean Show. And oh yeah, I've been getting some incredible messages lately, leading up to
Well, you're the
camp out.
go-to guy with an international camp out.
Yeah, I got a real personal one. Do you want to see this one that I got the other day? We've had so many, but
Well, you got a glib? Yeah, shit. Just load it up there.
okay. Had so many in the last few days, but this one
That's
is
not the one with the little folded flower that looked like a little heart, is it? You
oh,
already
that
talked-
one. No, I talked about that already, right? No,
that was mind blowing. That it really
that
was.
that thing is literally mind blowing. But this is too. Yeah, that story was mind blowing because when I didn't notice everything that they left me there, they moved something beside the thing I didn't notice. Instead of, "Here, dummy, look at," like, I mean, just crazy stuff. But let me just go there for a minute. Why don't you give a personal announcement while I try to find this,
A personal announcement.
or well, do something.
I'd like to announce that I'm a person. I'm not a bean. I'm not a food group. I'm a person. We're all really people, and none of us are going to die. There's no death. We're eternal beings, and it seems like we're in an eternal school too. Seems like everybody likes to learn things.
Yeah, I like his answer about the hardships, because they don't have the hardships up there. I mean, I guess it makes sense, and that we go back richer for the lessons.
Well, if you spend 1 billion years just being happy, it might get boring. So come here and get burned at the stake as a witch. It's like, just to shake things up a little bit.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I'm gonna bring this up. So yeah, I mean, I know you reluctantly or begrudgingly or whatever. I mean, I'm kind of just joking, but you've listened to on occasion some of my explanations of what the meaning of my glyphs are. So you probably will see what I'm talking about with this because you've listened to enough of them. So I got this personal one the other day. Now, I've talked about the fish glyph a lot, right?
Fish
Being
That's
for Susan and I, that's our connection glyph. You remember that?
Fish. Oh, there's the fish cliff. Yeah.
Okay, so here's the fish glyph. Okay. Look, and then it's broken
So-
off here and curved around. Yeah. And then
Yeah.
it goes to, so here's the fish glyph. Sue and I are connected. This is a 4. Can you see that?
Yeah. Oh, well,
That's
that is a 4.
Yeah, that's Forshna. That's the guy who signed it. That's one of the Sasquatch people and he's left messages before, and he's a quieter kind of guy. He's not like Raj and Bud and RE and them as far as, like energy connection or whatever. But he leaves me a lot of stuff and messages and lessons, and he's very involved. He's just quiet. So you know, this is telling me that he left this. So here it is, connection, Brian and Susan. Here's his glyph signed by Forsh, which also speaks of our connection to him. Now look at this. Remember the Y? Man Sasquatch connected? Remember
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
And then X, you know, you have to look at it abstract. So it's all about connection. It's talking about Force is connected to us. Susan and I are connected. Man and Sasquatch are connected. We're all connected, and love, love, love.
But
And
the way it's set up, the 4 is kind of leaning in, so it makes like an A. If you just look at the two biggest sticks, it makes like an A.
could be an A too. Yeah. I mean, they're very abstract. I mean, yeah. I mean, if I looked at it, yeah, exactly. So
But you know, the fish is, there's no mistaking that. The 4, there's no mistaking that.
no, there's no mistaking the Y either. I mean, and you know, it's obviously handcrafted. I mean, look how it's been peeled away and stuff. No, it's just remarkable. Yeah, and they've been just doing all kinds of the stuff leading up to the camp out. They're pretty excited
And then I
because
don't know what's going on with this other stick over here.
I
you
don't
know,
know actually. Yeah,
it
I'm
looks
not
like
really
this
sure.
looks like a footprint there. Because see where there's no gravel right there at the end of it. Don't know what
Oh,
that.
right here.
Yeah.
You know,
Don't
you
know.
might be right. I mean, quite often when they leave something like this, they will leave a footprint right beside it, just to, you know, really like, hey, dummy, like, you know, get it? This is us. But yeah, it does. I'm not going to say for sure, but it kind of
Kind of could be.
has a feel, kind of. Sort of. Anyway, so we've been getting all kinds of that kind of stuff lately, and they're really excited about the camp out because, like I've always said, they kind of host it. I just kind of facilitate it. Susan and I and Laurel helps out a lot too. So
I just think it's wonderful, man. It's one of the most wonderful things. You're the go-to guy. You should be getting a lot of hope you got a lot of fresh batteries so you can record all the fun little innuendos and
oh yeah, I'm gonna
all the
take my
things that are happening over there.
I'm gonna take my fancy schmancy camera and do a
Well,
bunch of interviews.
everybody's gonna go up there for a week, right? It's these 5 days or 7 days, something like that.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and then we leave on Saturday. Full 5 days, yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That's pretty cool.
It's gonna be very cool. Can you imagine? And I'm just joking. I mean, I know you've got your reasons, probably, you know, and whatever, and personal, and it's fine. We don't have to go there, but can you imagine Kathleen Whitehead coming all that way? I mean, what a miracle! Woman can barely. She's not very mobile. I mean, and she's, you know, she got her passport. She got her ticket. She's got her bus.
Where is she? She's in Utah or something?
She's in Chicago, I think, around Illinois somewhere, I think.
Yeah, she gonna drive or is she gonna fly or what?
No, she's flying, she's doing all kinds of stuff. Renting an RV.
Well, that's bless her heart. Maybe she's got a little stash of money and she wants to do it. Some people
Yeah.
feel the pull.
Yep, yep. Absolutely.
I mean, I used to get the pull to go visit my guru and visit these enlightened guys, and I would just jump on a plane and take off.
Yeah.
Come back with just enough money to pay the rent and get another job and so on. That's
Hey,
yeah.
and you could have come and visited me for free.
I could have, yes. Still might though. Still might. Let's see how it goes.
If what's that?
I still might come and visit you one day.
Well, you should. It's like a magic kingdom up here.
Yeah, so when is this thing gonna kick off? In 2 weeks or 1 week?
On the 18th, so 2 weeks yesterday.
And we're gonna have one more show before that. We're gonna have Arla on the show before that on the 13th or something.
Yeah, and then I gotta come up with a few more shows too. I gotta figure out any ideas for guests.
I sent you this one guy who was yeah, I don't think you just got back from your last camping trip and you didn't notice it, but that guy, he's had Mind Speak and he had a you know, Love Zap and he's getting downloads.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Send it to me
He's
again.
in the he's in the message box. You just have to scroll up.
Okay, I'll scroll up and find it and try to get that guy on.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm sure that we'll have a show coming up after the camp out.
Oh yeah, the camp out reunion kind of thing.
A camp out show, reunion show, or well, not reunion.
What do
It'll
they
just
call
be
it? Roundup, camp out roundup.
camp out roundup show. The camp out roundup show. Yeah. Starring Ma Cobbler.
I'm surprised that Tom Cantrell's going to make it up there. He doesn't get around too good either.
It's really going to be, well, that shows you how important it is to him. Yeah, I mean, I never thought he'd make it up here, but it's a miracle.
How's he
He's-
getting up there? Is he going to fly, or he's got somebody picking him up?
He's got a friend driving him up. William Morris. Remember we had him on the show?
Oh yeah.
Remember William Morris? We was only on about him
Huh? Yeah, he was
a
good.
month
I
or
think.
two ago. Anyway, he's driving him up here, and yeah, it's all coming together.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's make a day of it. We got things coming
Right.
up. Got a couple of shows coming up.
Anybody has a suggestion for a guest or a show or wants to be a guest? Just drop us a line on that. You just make a comment on the show or whatever. Page. Probably be best.
Yeah.
contact.
Any story is a good story.
Friends of Sasquatch stories. And anyway, everybody have a good day. Hope everybody's summer was good. And now we're into my favorite time of year. I love this time of year.
It just started getting cool. We had this hurricane here, and and then right after that, it got a little bit of a cool down. So I'm beginning to feel, you always know that first time you feel the coolness of fall. You ever notice that? There's that one day that
Yeah.
you just feel, it's changing. The coolness is coming back.
Yeah. And I also want to say that if anybody, feels like they missed out by not coming to the camp out this year, you can always get a hold of me. And, I usually have one every year. So if you don't make it this time, you can make it next time. And maybe Mr. Beans will actually show up.
Yeah,
We'll have-
maybe. Oh, I forgot to ask that guy, our guest. I forgot to ask him if they had tacos in heaven.
Oh, God. I'm sure they do, because I mean,
you would have to ask that, I mean, if you
From
like
what I-
tacos.
yeah, I mean, yeah, how do we miss that question? That's probably the number one question, right?
I know. I mean,
But
it's
I
Italians.
honestly think that you can have any experience or do anything that you want while you're in heaven.
Yeah. And I bet you it tastes really good and it's not fattening.
I hope that ain't my truck honking. Better not be. Oh, no. Okay, it went off. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. What would your first meal in heaven be? Maybe a big plate of spaghetti and
I
meatballs.
don't know.
I love spaghetti.
Spaghetti's a good choice.
I mean, like homemade, I'm talking about the stuff that like my grandfather was Sicilian. I'm talking about the stuff that you have on the stove all freaking Sunday afternoon when the mob guys are all playing their cards and
Well, I've
whatever,
been to- I've
It's all
been to
day to cook.
I went to Rome one time and I went to a restaurant, and it turned out it was a really sort of top of the line restaurant. They had a wheelbarrow full of bread, and it was up to your eyes. So you're going into the front door, there's this wheelbarrow full of bread, every kind of brown bread and long, and so like that's what was in the front. And you went in and it was like the whole place was full of picnic tables. And then in the front, on both sides of the front door, there was just rows of all this stuff that you could get. So it's sort of like a smorgasbord kind of thing where you went and got all the stuff. It was a self-serve. Then when you look back there, the place was full, right? Because this is right in the middle of the historic.
Naples?
No, this is Rome. It was like what 3 coins in the fountain. There's the fountain there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the fountain.
3 coins in the
Right.
fountain.
So it was right
It's
across there. And anyway, so that they had like ducks, pigeons, pheasants, geese, that every kind of meat you could think of, lamb and goat and pig and every kind of thing. It's different, 20 different kinds of mushrooms and sauces.
Oh,
But
wow.
yeah, the Italians, they know how to do it.
And it was good food?
It was this great food, and then as I'm sitting there having my food, right? I look, and everybody's just, they're sitting on these picnic tables, and then I looked on the back wall. The back wall was full of mink coats. I mean,
Wow.
these people with money knew where this place was, and they, you know, because it was like probably the best in the world.
This is kind of an unsavory topic, I guess, but not the most appetizing if you're having lunch or whatever. But is it true that the washrooms in Rome and whatever, there's just a big hole in the freaking, there's places where there's just a big hole in the floor?
Uh,
That's bullshit.
that's in places like Thailand and Singapore, but not.
Oh, I heard it wasn't like in Europe.
In
No,
Rome, even in the old town, you know, if you stay in an old hotel somewhere, they got toilets like we got. So,
oh, they do. Okay.
well, they're not as they're kind of goofy old style, but they're still toilets.
I guess somebody was trying to pull my leg. They told me it was just a big like marble floor and a big hole in the middle, and you.
Well, there are bars, okay. Well, you know, when you go to a bar where they have a toilet separate, and then they have like a wall with a little sprout with the spray dripples water down, and then a trough, and you just pee against this wall, and it goes down a trough and goes into a hole. So there's that.
Oh, I've seen that. We've had them in Canada before in some bars and stuff.
Yeah.
Those pea troughs, yeah. Pea trough.
Yeah, I didn't particularly like. I didn't particularly like the bathrooms in Rome because they were cold. You know, and everything's tile and everything, right? And then in Rome, it's
Yeah.
probably about 40 degrees all the time. It's like a, you know, it's Europe. Yeah.
What's your favorite country over there to visit?
I liked Ireland a lot. I
Oh,
kind
wow.
of like England, but England's kind of weird. France was nice. Germany was bizarre because they're just, the German people are crazy. They're kind of normal, but they're crazy too. They're just a strange place. The whole vibe is very strange.
Word.
Austria is even more stranger.
Well, that's where
Yeah.
the food was from, wasn't it?
They got this thing called swine flesh. And in every restaurant in Austria that we went to, they had swine flesh. This was basically pork sausage and blood sausage and white sausage and black sausage, and that's what they eat over there.
A lot of artery hardening over
Yeah,
there.
it's a real beautiful place though. God, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Austria. It's like, you know how you have mountains, right? And the mountains have like a little stream in the middle. And so over there in Austria, there's the little stream in the middle, and like the width of one farm on either side of the stream, and then it just goes up like that on both sides. And you got to drive along that thing, and then you got these chalets and stuff, which are like these, like a hotel and bars and restaurants and stuff for vacations. And so it's just like something out of James Bond, exactly out of James Bond, where, you know, we had to go to the chalet and have all these adventures. Yeah, that's what Austria is like.
Cool. Anyway,
Ireland is one of the most beautiful places.
oh,
really.
I'd love to go to Ireland. Yeah, it looks really beautiful there. I was gonna say, so next when is this? I want to tell the people when our next show is.
Italy is
again.
actually really beautiful too.
Oh yeah, I'd love to have some of the food in Italy. I'd like to have some pasta.
You would
and
love
pizza.
Italy because it's just, they're laid back, you know, laid back. You
Yeah.
could just feel like you could live there. And probably because of this reincarnation thing, we've all lived in Rome or Italy multiple lifetimes, because that was like, you know, such a big center.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a show, the Star People and the Sasquatch Connection, on the 12th, and then my campboat's on the 18th. Arla comes in on the 15th, so I probably won't have a show until after. So we have a little break, unless you want to do one in between or something.
I'm
Do
good.
something.
I like what you're doing. Anyway,
Okay, I'll
let's
have to come up with
sign
something.
off.
Yeah, we'll talk to you later. Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll have more shows coming up announced soon. So Talk to you later.